Science Fiction and Fantasy Forum. This is Brian. I'll let him introduce himself, but be prepared for an awesome 45 minutes to an hour of time travel. I'm going to turn off my video. Take it away.
That was a lot of pressure saying awesome.
I want to say thank you for setting this up. It happens to be my birthday, so it's a good birthday present.
Oh, congratulations. Happy birthday, Ariel.
Thank you. I'm looking forward to the talk. Be well. Good to see you.
All right. Everybody can hear me okay? Okay. Hold on a second. All right. I lost my cursor, and if I need to share my screen, I need to be able to do that. Okay. So my name is Brian Paoni, and I wrote a time travel novel a couple years ago. Something that's been rolling around in my head since I was in high school, and I already had 2 published novels at the time. And one of the things that I knew I always wanted to do was I definitely did not want to do the whirling time machine type time travel. So I wanted to steep it more in real science than kind of building a machine and stuff like that. I have a little slide show that I'm going to talk through. I'm going to share my screen here. See if this works or not. Yes. All right. There we go. So I made this morning over a cup of coffee, so bear with me if it's kind of jumbled. So this is the front cover of my book, yours truly, 2095. It takes place between 1981 and 2095. Those are the 2 time zones that we flip back and forth. I'm a huge fan of the 80s, and I grew up in the 80s, so I was able to pull on a lot of pop culture. And the interesting thing was I had not read Ready Player One yet when I wrote this book. In fact, I started writing this book before Ready Player One even came out, and I had a lot of people say that, you know, how many 80s references I make throughout my novel was reminiscent of Ready Player One. And my novel came out a year after Ready Player One, but I had started writing it before. And so there was a lot of people were, you know, you got to read this, you got to read this. You know, they talk about the same kind of stuff. Michael Crichton, Jurassic Park, when I read that, I really, when I was writing my novel, I kept saying I love the fact that he made you, your suspension of, to put aside science fiction. In Jurassic Park, he makes you do it so small. He kind of has the science behind how we can use the DNA dinosaur to build new dinosaurs. So I kept thinking I wanted my book to be a realistic time travel novel. So when I was writing it, I used to use this as an example when I was talking to other writers and my editor and stuff like that. So I used quantum entanglement. And I didn't really know what quantum entanglement was while I was researching the book. I had gone through many, many different theories of how I could make time travel possible. And we were living in Japan at the time. My wife is in the Navy, active duty, and we were stationed in Yokosuka, Japan. And I had written about 4 or 5 outlines to my novel that I didn't like, or my wife reviewed and said, nope, this isn't going to work. And we went to the Tokyo Science Museum, and they happened to have an exhibit on quantum entanglement, something I'd never really heard of before, and I was just wowed by the process and the science. And I started taking pictures of all these little plaques that explained it, and I went home. I read a book on quantum entanglement. I started YouTubing speeches from scientists about it, and I said, that's it. I think this is how we're going to make time travel work. Quantum entanglement is kind of this an interesting theory that if you take 2 particles, if you take a particle and separate them, and you put them in other sides of the universe, the particles are going to spin in the same direction. And if you stop the spinning of one particle, the other particle will stop also. So they're entangled. It doesn't matter the distance between them. And I said, well, if we can make time travel work the same way, that could be interesting. So now I had my science, but man, I had to figure out how that was going to work as a plot. So that's the slide. If you separate them, they're still going to follow each other. They're like twins forever, even though they're not connected anymore. I knew I did not want something like this for time travel. I did not want to be able to get into a machine and fly around, go through like a tunnel of light and all that stuff. And then, there's this classic time travel vehicle, which everybody knows. And I put that up there because I happen to own a DeLorean, and it's behind me in my garage right now. I thought that would be a nice backdrop for this. Here's from Wiki. Quantum entanglement is a physical phenomenon that occurs when a pair or group of particles are generated, interact, share. Basically what I was saying earlier. And when separated by a large distance, they still react to each other. Einstein called it spooky action at a distance. And that was the term he coined for quantum entanglement. There's also a theory that it is faster than light. The entanglement happens faster than the speed of light. And when something is faster than light, the theory is that something could also travel backward or forward in time, which is another thing that was interesting. So faster than light, anything that travels faster than light, hence quantum entanglement. Time travel to the future, yes. Time travel to the past, yes. This was all stuff for me. I said, this is my theory. This is how we're going to make this work. That's the end of my slide. Look at that. Let me stop sharing. Stop sharing. Come back to me. All right. I hope I'm back. So what I wanted to do was, I said, well, quantum entanglement. You take a proton or an element, you split it in half, you send it to opposite sides of the universe, and they're going to still react no matter what you do to one, it's going to happen to the other. So I said, well, I've got a person in 1981 who magically appears in 2095 and has no idea how he gets there. And that was the basis of the book. And what he finds is that his great-grandfather in 2095 is a scientist and finds out that he can time travel, but only if he switches, kind of like the Quantum Leap, the old Quantum Leap television show, if he switches bodies almost with somebody in his biological lineage. So if you think of the two people being in two different times as the two particles in quantum entanglement, he can time travel, but only if he switches with that person. So when he goes back to 1981, his great-grandson from 1981 goes into 2095. He has to switch. He can't just travel in time. So he has to replace the person. And he chooses his great-grandson to go back and forth with. And one of the reasons why he wants to do it is because his great-grandson had accidentally killed his daughter in a car crash. He was drunk driving and killed his daughter in a car crash, and the marriage is on the rocks. And if he doesn't keep the marriage together with his wife and have another child, or if he doesn't, he spirals into alcoholism and all this. If he doesn't stay kind of clean and sober or his head straight, then there will be no, future generations. So the great-grandfather will never have been born. So it's kind of like a Back to the Future thing where, if Marty McFly doesn't go back and have his parents get together, he'll never be there. So he goes back in flip-flops and tries to repair the marriage. However, what happens is he finds out that his wife in 1981 is not the mother of the line, and he winds up falling in love with her. So it's not incest, because this was never part of his line. The grandson was eventually going to divorce and marry again, and then have the bloodline that he's part of. So he winds up pulling the plug on the quantum entanglement and keeps his great-grandson trapped in 2095 with no way to get back, so he can live a life in 1981 with this woman that he's in love with. So he tries to repair the marriage and all that. So he's so he's stuck in 2095. The bulk of the book is in the point of view of the great-grandson trapped in 2095. And when he gets there, he doesn't know why he's there. He thinks it's a dream at first. He's confused. He's scared. He's on the run. People are chasing him. And he teams up with the scientist's partner who created the time travel, and they spend the book trying to hide from authorities and trying to get him back to 1981 so they can swap the place of the scientist and his great-grandson. Sounds a lot more complicated than actually it is. In fact, I'm confusing myself as I'm talking about it, and I'm the one who wrote it. But so we spend a lot of time in the future. It's kind of, and we don't find out what's going on until he does. So it's in first-person point of view, and we don't know what's happening until he finds out what's happening. So there's a mystery element to it. I don't head hop at all in the book, back and forth between the times. I only do that. We only travel in the times when the main character travels between the two times, and there's little clues left for him that he starts piecing together, and that's we all put it together as the book goes, as opposed to kind of have everything laid out and us knowing before he does. But yes, somebody just wrote, so the book, the title, Yours Truly 2095 is an Electric Light Orchestra song title. And I used ELO's time novel as the basis for the book. I took all the lyrics to the album, and I fleshed it out in a novelization type format. Kind of like, I came from it from the perspective of when a movie is adapted from a book. We have the book, and then a director or a producer goes and makes the movie from the book. I said, as an author, what if I took this concept novel and turned it into a concept album, and turned it into a novel? So there's this genre, this is a little niche genre called rock fiction, and that's what we do as authors, because I've written a lot of short stories and stuff in it. But so you take either a song or a full album by a band and you turn it into a short story or a full novel, the same way that someone would make a movie from a book. What was interesting about that, so there's some the copyright issues are always a question that comes up. We found that there is no copyright infringement as long as we're not using any of the lyrics in the book verbatim. We can't, I can't put the lyrics to the songs in the book itself. But the storyline, as long as you make it your own, you can take the foundation of the storyline of a concept album and kind of and run with it. So, and I have proof. I know that Jeff Lynne, the singer and main guy of Electric Light Orchestra, knows about my book because he was asked about it on a radio show. In Los Angeles, live. Someone called in and asked about, if he knew about my book, and he smiled and chuckled, and kind of gave a nod, and then just went on about it. So that was like a moment for me where I kind of had this like moment that I wasn't going to get sued or anything like that. So, and someone had that moment on a clip of him doing that. And they sent it to me just to watch, and it was an interesting moment for me. It was to have Jeff Lynne ask directly and have him laugh and nod and kind of give the smirk, and then he went on to the next question. So I think it was something. It was his way of saying he really didn't want to talk about it, but he was kind of flattered and had no problems with it. So that was a big moment for me within the life of the novel. So so. The using the real science of it in the album. If we want to talk about the fact that I grew the novel from a concept album, nowhere in the album does Electric Light Orchestra ever say how the time travel is happening between 2095 and 1981. So that was a huge door that I could walk through, and I had to kind of fill the hole of that. And that's why I spent so much of my time researching how this could happen. especially when in the album, Jeff Lynne never sings about a time machine itself or any sort of vehicle or physical thing. It just sort of happens in the album. But I knew that just having it happen, readers wouldn't, feel satisfied if it just happens. So I knew I had to come up with, I had to find something. So that's why I chose to go to, the reality, the reality route. And the cool thing about rock fiction, about turning someone's album, turning music into fiction, is marketing and advertising it's two-pronged. So when the book came out, we did a huge advertising and marketing blitz for ELO fans. I did Facebook ads, I did Amazon ads, I did, and it targeted anybody who liked ELO, mentioned Electric Light Orchestra. The algorithm was for ELO fans, but it being a time travel novel and a science fiction novel and some romance thrown in, we also had a completely separate marketing blitz for people who like time travel romance, and a completely separate marketing blitz for people who like time travel and science fiction. And you don't need to even know or have even heard of the band Electric Light Orchestra or even know this album even exists to read the book. And I approached writing it in the same way as you don't ever need to know that a book was written to enjoy the movie. It's not a prerequisite. It's not like a continuation. It's not, a fan fiction of an album where I continued the story of this. It was a novelization of the album. And I've had a lot of ELO fans tell me how much they enjoyed it because I kept true to the spirit of the album. And I've had people who told me that they like the book and have no idea, who ELO even is, or could care less that there's a band that wrote this album that I wrote this book off of. So that was the greatest challenge that me and my editor worked with was, dancing that delicate dance of keeping it true to the album, but also making it so you never needed to know that there's an album and you can still enjoy it, and you won't be quote unquote missing something. You won't get like a joke or you won't get a point. It's making it all encompassing, it to be standalone. So, and I very much enjoy doing it. I'm on the docket right now. I'm working on doing a novelization of Pink Floyd's the Final Cut album, and I've gone as far as flying to England. And I interviewed 10 people in a span of 8 days all over the country for that. So I'm going to turn the Pink Floyd album into a novel. And again, following the same copyright rules, as long as I don't use the lyrics, as long as I don't, say that it's, that the band, supports it or anything like that, then there's really no legal things that can happen, which is a good thing. So I got Pink Floyd on the docket, and that was interesting talking because the Pink Floyd album, The Final Cut, is about the Falklands War, and so I went and interviewed 10 veterans of the war, people who fought in the war, and I was very transparent about what I was doing. I'm writing a book about a Pink Floyd album that's about the Falklands War, and it was funny. Some of them opening up and saying how much that album helped them get through depression when they came back from the war, and so it changed my perception of the album, which I hope that will benefit me when I actually start to write it. And that's my next year project, is to start working on that. But I got off the topic of time travel. I'm sorry, but so that's a whole little genre, a niche of genre of rock fiction I very much enjoy because I'm a huge music fan. So to be able to kind of take my favorite albums and turn them into works of fiction is a lot of fun. I've seen a bunch of things jumping up on the chat, and let's see. I'm sorry, I was ignoring the chat, and I didn't realize that it was doing anything until I just noticed something goes flying across the screen.
No worries.
That's on
I was keeping an eye on it.
I'm also, yeah. Is there anything? Did I miss anything? Let's see. Next week we live home.
We've got a Britt wanted to ask, I think, a follow-up question.
Okay.
Britt, if you want to unmute, or I can read out your message, and also a lot of praise for your book.
That's fine. I can say it. Can you hear me okay?
I can, yes.
Okay, awesome. So my question is what piece of advice would you give to a first-time author who is interested in creating or interested in publishing a sci-fi fantasy novel that is based off of a previous work? Like, this particular person is interested in possibly maybe even selling this this novel to the Dungeons and Dragons type series. That's what it's based off of.
Okay.
So what advice would you give that person?
My first advice, I try to look at everything from a legal standpoint first. I would make sure that if any characters or any words that they're going to use aren't trademarked and copywritten, that they're allowed to use them in their own work. So with music, it's a little bit different because the only thing that's copyrighted is the actual lyrics. The song titles are not, the ideas in the songs are not, so you get a lot of play. When you're talking about something like Dungeons and Dragons, you got to make sure that it's not branded in a certain way that if you use a character name, there could be an issue with that legally. But if you find that that's good and you're good to go, or you get that all worked out, my advice would be to get if Dungeons and Dragons is the audience, get the Dungeons and Dragons audience excited before the book, during the writing of the book. I found that I started posting in ELO Facebook groups, that I was writing this book about 6 months before the book was published, and it generated a big buzz. So when the book came out, we had tons of pre-orders, and I was shipping copies like crazy the first couple months it was out, and it had a lot of legs. It got a lot of traction because I created a buzz within the ELO community. So that's from a marketing standpoint. From a writing standpoint, just take your love of the topic and let it, and just unleash it. The fact that this album is one of my top 5 favorite albums of all time, and I always wanted to write a time travel novel, I put the two together and I let my passion for the source material carry me through. And that's what it is. I mean, if you have enough passion for the source material, then I don't think, I think you're going to have more ideas than you can fit in the book. Did that answer your question?
Yes, that's pretty much along the lines of what I was looking into. I'm a independent publisher, and I'm working on a manuscript for someone whose their manuscript is kind of based off of that Dungeons Dragons
right.
Like genre, and so that's good tips to kind of like take back to them.
Sure.
And pre-COVID, they could have went to a couple of the like some of the forums or the conferences, but now we have to kind of adjust ourselves in that regard as well. So I've been just trying to find, material and get information from other authors who are already in the genre, because this is not like my strongest area as far as literary genres is concerned. I'm still learning, which is why I'm here at the Sci-Fi Fantasy Forum. So,
well, definitely the good thing from a marketing standpoint is once the book is written, you know who your audience is. You don't have to guess. I mean, when I sometimes even with genre books, if you write a time travel romance novel, you would think your time travel and your romance, readers would be your market, but sometimes it doesn't bite as much as you think it would. But when you go for something as specific as like, writing a book based on a band or writing a book based on a game, now you really know who your market is. You have whittled it down so much. It's so much easier to market and advertise when you've condensed it like that. But that's just me.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you.
You're welcome. I did want to say in the chat, Chris Chris said he had to leave and he was going to keep listening. I hope he is, because he wrote the "Don't Bring Me Down, Bruce" line is funnier if you know the song, which is it's a kind of an inside ELO joke. I named my scientist Bruce because of that misheard line in that song. I wish I had seen that earlier while he was still on, but. And,
I think he's still listening. Yep, I see his phone listed.
Okay, yeah. So the "Don't Bring Me Down, Bruce." He doesn't actually say Bruce in the song. It's one of those misheard lyrics. But I actually made my scientist's name Bruce because of that misheard lyric, because it became such a joke. And then Terry wrote about "Somewhere in Time." I love "Somewhere in Time." "Somewhere in Time" is one of my favorite movies ever made, ever. And when my mother was reading my book, before it came out, she called me and she said, "You know what this book reminds me of? Do you remember that movie Somewhere in Time with Christopher Reeve?" And I was like, "Thank you. I'm so glad you said that." So that was a huge compliment for me, because Somewhere in Time was a fantastic movie. Let's see. All right. Anything else? Someone sent me a copyright.gov link, and I clicked on it, and it says it's a broken link. There's nothing there. I don't know it's because it's spelled wrong. I'll check that out later.
Oh yeah, it's missing the R.
Yeah, it's missing the R. I just clicked on it as a link, and then I realized it sent me nowhere. But I'll check on that later.
Yeah, that's the library also has the copyright division, so we get a lot of copyright, all the copyright stuff. I'm not in that division, so.
Yeah, but when I started writing the book, I reached out to ELO's the licensure, the ASCAP and BMI, and then I contacted an entertainment lawyer in New York City. And I went over a whole bunch of things with him, and I said, where am I crossing the line? At what point is this? Could this come back and bite me? And he said, you got to be careful. Anyway, all the time. But he said that it seems that from previous cases, as long as lyrics weren't used verbatim, that it was that was in the safe zone. So, and I went with it. And there are so many books now in this genre of people writing based on novels that, and again, I don't see, there's no lyrics printed in them. It's just the idea of what the album is about.
Cool. Well, since we still have some time, and maybe you want to tell everyone the long story about your DeLorean, since I got the preview version.
Yeah. So, behind me, that's my car, and I'd wanted one since I was a little kid, and it's basically been my dream car my whole life. It's the only thing I've ever wanted. So, in 2003, I actively started looking to buy one. And there's only 4,000 DeLoreans left in the world, still on the road. There was 9,000 made, and they think they can only account for about 4,000 left. And that's not just in America, that's 4,000 in the entire world. So they're very slim out there. And in 2003, I started looking, and then in 2004, I met my wife, and we got married, bought the house, started having kids. And it was always, it turned into more of a joke than anything. Like, she'd say, "Brian, what do you want for Christmas this year?" And they'd say, "A DeLorean." And the next year, "Brian, what do you want for your birthday this year?" "A DeLorean." And then that happened for so many years that she started to say, "Brian, what do you want for Christmas this year?" And don't say a DeLorean. It was just always the thing. But I never stopped looking, and I knew that I wanted, very specifically, an automatic. And only 1/3 of all DeLoreans were made in automatic. So you figure if you take the 4,000 that are left in the world, only 1/3 of those are automatics. So my pickings were even slimmer and slimmer and slimmer. Now my mother, being my mother, knows my obsession with the DeLorean. And last January of 2019, I was driving my kids somewhere, and my mother sent a text message about a DeLorean that came up for sale in Traverse City, Michigan, within a reasonable price range, something that I could afford. And it was the first time in 16 years that a DeLorean had come up for sale that was in an automatic. You can remember I was looking for an automatic that came up within my price range. And I was like, oh my goodness, this thing is going to go, like immediately. So my next hurdle was, how do I ask my wife if I can go buy a DeLorean? Within like now, like tonight. I don't even have time to figure out, how to present it to her and all this. So what I did was, I thought to myself, I said, what's the one time of the day when she can't say no immediately? I was like, you know what? It's when she's brushing her teeth. Because if she's brushing her teeth and I talk about the DeLorean, in order for her to answer me, she has to take the toothbrush out of her mouth, spit, and then say something. So I get 3 seconds. You want to talk about an elevator pitch. I had to do an elevator pitch for my DeLorean, and I knew I had 3 seconds to get everything I wanted to say in order for her to agree to it. And I practiced it the whole ride home from where I was. And then, it was, we were getting ready for bed, and I heard the water turn on for her to brush her teeth, and I was like, let's go time. I was so scared. It was like asking her to marry me all over again, and for a stupid car. And but I knew that this was my only shot, because I'd waited 16 years for an automatic to come up for sale that I could afford. So I was like, well, if this falls through, it's gonna be maybe never. So she started brushing her teeth, and I spit it out like a machine gun. And she took the toothbrush out of her mouth, and she said, "Do you have enough money in your book royalty?" Because I have a separate bank account for my book royalties. She says, "Do you have enough money to cover it in your book royalty account?" I said, "I do." I didn't. I was $3,000 short. But I was like, I do. She's like, all right, well, make the phone call. So I called my mom, and I was like, Mom, I'm gonna buy the DeLorean, but I need $3,000 to cover the rest of it. So my mother sent me a check, and she covered the other $3,000. I called the lady who was selling it, and literally wired her the money. She FedExed me the title, and there she is. So I 17,000 miles on it. It's a 38-year-old car, only had 17,000 miles on it. So that's really low. The car has spent most of its life in a garage. So that's the long version of the story.
That's awesome. Yeah, thanks for sharing.
But I love it, and I drive it as much as I can, and it's definitely having your dream car after the decades of wanting one. Sometimes I come out into the garage to just pass through, and I see it, and I get all, I still smile. I walk past it, oh, that's my car. It's really there. Anyway.
Cool. Let's see if there's any other questions. Emma says it would be fabulous if your book was turned into a movie and then they used the album as a soundtrack.
Yeah, that would be. Yeah, as an author, you always kind of fantasize about what actor and actress would play who. You lay in bed at night and you're like, oh, who would do this, and So I did have my ideal cast at one point. When the book came out. So that I did go through those motions in my head, but I think if there was a movie to be made, there would be a lot of legal logistics to work through with the band and stuff like that. Because there's some intellectual property there.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I think that would be fun. I in my head I envisioned Jason Bateman and Rose Byrne being the two stars, being the guy and the girl, the husband and wife. So I don't know why that was the people I envisioned in my head, and I wasn't thinking of them when I wrote the book. It's not like I modeled my characters after them. It was after the fact I started going, who would play these people, So.
Oh, looks like I got another question from Emma. What's your top 3 favorite books to read or recommend?
All right, so my favorite author is Stephen King, so I'm just going to go ahead and say blanket Stephen King's whole collection. But something that I always pull out, one of my favorite novels of all time is The Bell Jar by Sylvia Plath, The Great Gatsby, and I really love the Pillars of the Earth series, and the Earth's Children series, the Clan of the Cave Bear, the whole Earth's Children series, another one of my favorites. I got into Clive Barker for a while, and then I kind of got out of him at some point. But yeah, Bell Jar, Great Gatsby, and Pillars of the Earth. Those are probably. I'm right now reading the entire Wizard of Oz, box set. It's like 15 books. It's like 400 kabillion trillion words or something like that. So that's interesting to read them all in order that he wrote them, because that's something I typically wouldn't go and reach for to read, but I was in the mood for a little bit, something like, I'd never read The Wizard of Oz, and Wizard of Oz is one of my favorite movies of all time, so it's interesting to see how deep he went into the world that, they never made more movies about or anything like that. So.
Yeah, they're actually. I actually saw a presentation, I think a month or so ago, from the Copyright Office about Wizard of Oz and the manuscripts the library has, and that they did an exhibit several years ago.
Yeah, oh, that's cool.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm reading it on my Kindle, and my Kindle says I'm 30% through, but I'm on I feel like I've read 8 books already. I don't know how deep this goes, but it's like. It takes me hours for it to flip up another percentage of reading, so it's got to be massive. I think it's like 15 books or something. I don't know, but I'm enjoying them. So.
Let's see. Any other questions?
And I do want to. Acknowledge Xander giving me saying the thing about the copyright protected and what isn't, that there's a lot of misunderstanding. I didn't want to ignore that. When we're off this, I am going to click on that link and go through it. So I didn't want him to think that it was like a not for him putting it up there.
Yeah. Question I usually ask my authors. You already mentioned one book that you're working on. Do you have any other projects that are upcoming, or any writing that you're working on?
Yeah, I'm focusing on the Falklands Pink Floyd novel. I'm doing that, and I really want to. Because I love music so much, I really want to write a book that's not based off of music, like someone else's song or album. I really want to write a book about. Well, I have 2 books in mind. I have one that I want to kind of just do a straightforward drama, which I've never done, because all of my books have some sort of horror element or some sort of sci-fi element to them. I do want to write a book that's just about. I'm from Salem, Massachusetts, and I want to write a book about a coffee shop kind of open mic night, acoustic guitar female singer who decides to go to LA to make it. But the book isn't about her, whether she makes it or not. The book is going to be the trip from Massachusetts to LA. It's going to be the travel of the trip, not the destination, and how she grows and learns about things, and on her way there. So, because a lot of stories about musicians coming from nothing and then being stars, it ends with knowing if they made it or not. If that's the point, that's the climax, and I really want to kind of delve more into the journey of the person growing along the trip. So, and then I had another idea of the different eras of music, the doo-wop era, and then like the 60s British invasion, and like the 70s prog rock, and then the 80s new wave, and the 90s grunge. And we're talking about time travel, having a character, and this is obviously just completely off inside my head. I haven't done any outlining of this at all, but he's able to kind of go through all the different eras of music, and we find out that he's the reason, as he goes, that certain music has changed in each decade. Because he's kind of brought a little bit of knowledge from the previous decade with him. So this is why doo-wop changed to the rock and roll, and why rock and roll turned into prog, and how prog turned into the disco era entered, and the new wave entered. And we find out that it's this guy influencing all these as he's able to kind of time travel through all the different eras of music. So he's the reason at the pinnacle moment of all of these. Again, that is so far back in my brain that I haven't even flushed that out at all. In fact, I think I just flushed it out more saying it out loud than I did. I had it in my head 5 minutes ago. So.
Well, I hope that was helpful.
Yeah, now I'm going to go write that down now. Thanks, guys. Oh, I see. Okay, so someone thinks that Padme in Star Wars would be what Ozma would look like. Yeah, I could see that. I think that would be that's pretty spot on. That would be interesting. Yeah, right. So what Terry just wrote, that each chapter was a different generation. Yeah, maybe each chapter would be a different era of music, and it moves forward into modern day. I don't know. Again, that's so just an idea bouncing around in my head. But have I considered using the music division of the Library of Congress to help with my research for my next work? I did not, but once again, Xandra seems to have like really, really important things here. So I did not, and that is a great tip. That is fantastic. Thank you. I had not ever thought of that, so I will follow up.
Yeah, there's Ask a Librarian for, you can submit just a general question, or you can go to each division, like the music division, and send a targeted sort of Ask a Librarian to them about anything. Or, if the library is open, you could come and research.
Right. I know. It'd be great when you guys open again. Yeah. Okay, so he just posted the link. That's good. Thank you.
Yeah, well, last question. Where can people find your books if they want to read these?
My books are available on Amazon, Barnes & Nobles, Books A Million, my personal website, which is brianpaoni.com, my name. Yes, Terry just asked if they're in audio. They are. All of my books are available in audiobook on iTunes, Audible, or just normal MP3 download from my website. I offer them cheaper, but it's just an MP3 file from brianpaoni.com. And all my books are on my books are also available ebooks through basically every ebook site. I go wide with it. I'm not I go unlimited or anything. Okay.
There you go.
Yes, right there. Thank you.
All right. And last thing, did you want to share the trailer for your book?
Yep. So I have a book trailer for the novel. It only runs about a minute long, and we thought we would end, with that. Need to just get it up here. 1 second. All right. So one quick thing. Of course, I wasn't allowed to use any of ELO's music in the trailer. That would have been fun if I could have, but obviously now we're getting into real copyright problems. So I'm friends with a band from Canada called Our Lady Peace, and I contacted the guitarist who's a big ELO fan. So all the music in that trailer, the guitarist from Our Lady Peace wrote and recorded in his home studio specifically for the trailer, and then we used snippets of that music in the audio book, kind of to go in and out of chapters. So it was a little tidbit on the music there.
That's awesome. Thank you for sharing. And I think that's it, unless there are any other questions. Any other comments people want to make? Looks like that's all. Well, yeah, thank you for coming. This was a fantastic presentation.
Thank you for having me. Thank you for everybody. Yes, Our Lady Peace as in Repair. Yes, that band. All that music in the trailer was done by the guitarist. I've been friends with them for about 20 years now. So when I called Mike, the guitarist, and told him that I needed music for a trailer because I couldn't use ELO's music, he jumped right on it. He was very excited.
Cool. One last thing. Do you want me to take like a screenshot of you with the DeLorean? We sometimes do newsletters for the LCPA, and I was thinking that might be fun to include.
Do you want me to Do you want me to go stand by it, or do you want me this close?
Yeah, and I can take a screenshot to share for our event.
Is that okay?
Perfect. All right, got it. Let me double check that it came through. Yep, looks good.
Awesome.
Wonderful. Well, yeah, thanks again. I'll send that screenshot for you if you want to share it with your followers. Say, spoke for the LCPA, What If Science Fiction Fantasy Forum, et cetera, et cetera.
Okay.
And we'd love to have you back in, whenever the library reopens.
It sounds really fun when the library is open. So we can.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you for having me, and thank you for everyone for your questions, and thank you for listening and watching.
Yeah, and feel free to contact either me or or the library in general if you ever, need connections to anything. So.
Okay. Great. Perfect.
Yeah. Well, have a great day, and good luck with all your kids in homeschool.
Yeah.
Virtual school.
Thank you so much.
Bye.
Bye.